Hi guys, welcome back to Nico Talks Hockey. Today I'm starting another new series. Today I'll be starting a series titled Team Panic Meters. It'll be covering all the teams around the NHL and where I think the team and their respective fan bases are at in terms of how panicked or how happy they are about their team's play to start the season. Now, full disclosure, this is definitely inspired by the Hockey Guy's panic indexes that he does. I thought they're such a fun video. I love watching them whenever they come out. I think it's like a really good video to kind of get a kind of finger on the pulse of how teams and their respective fan bases are feeling about how their teams are doing at any point during the season. So this is a monthly series. This is October's Team Panic Meter for this 25-26 NHL season. Next month in November, we'll have another one. But I want to go right into it. This is the very first one of the series. And let me explain to you a little bit of how it's going to happen. So right over here is a tier list. This tier list will have, descriptions to it. So at the bottom, these are the teams that they aren't really panicked because they're already looking toward the draft to potentially get superstar Gavin McKenna. So this is the Gavin McKenna tier. These are teams that, their expectations were not very high going into the season, and they're actually they're probably more happy to get Gavin McKenna than make a playoff push. Then one tier above, you've got, this is the panicking hard tier. The next tier up, you've got the panicking hard tier. These teams they're panicking hard. They've had a very concerning start to the season. So the first month of the season from their team, it's been quite concerning. So yeah, we'll get into that. The middle tier. This is the middle tier. These teams this is the concerned but not overreacting too much tier. These teams are slightly worried about their play, but they're pretty middling. They're not ready to overreact though. Maybe they're just hovering around 500. It's a lot about expectations, right? A lot of these panic meters, they're going to be about expectations and what they had, the kind of expectations they had from their fan bases and from their own organizations going into the season. So yeah, this is concerned but not overreacting too much tier. Then the second highest tier, we've got they're pleasantly surprised. This is like half and half. If you're in this tier, you're either you're a team that's very pleasantly surprised about how you're doing. Maybe your expectations weren't that high, but you're doing quite well. And the other half of the teams in here they're just playing really good hockey. Not the best hockey, you're not at the top of the league, but you're playing good and you should be happy about it. But the top of the tier list here is you're ecstatic. This is the over the moon tier. Your team's just had a really good start to the season, and you should be very, very happy with how your team's doing, and there's not really any concerning signs that your team will start, trending down anytime soon. But without further ado, I just want to get right into it. We're covering all 32 teams, so we don't want to waste any time here. I'm going to start at the bottom here. So this is one of the hardest tiers, actually, just because I don't, so early into the season, I don't want to kind of limit expectations and say, oh, well, people don't really care about how they're going to do this season. They just want to look forward to Gavin McKenna. That's kind of maybe a little unfair to say, but either way, I still think it applies to a couple teams here. So before I get into these teams really quick, I just want to explain that it's very loose, but as I put these teams into this tier list, they are ordered by how close they are to the next tier, either whether it's above them or below them. So, for a team that's in the top of the tier list, I'm not going to spoiler it right now, but if you're a team that's at the top of the tier list, the closer you are to the back of that list, that means the closer you are to the next tier down, and so on and so forth. So I'll explain as the video goes on, though. So at the top of the list, teams already looking towards the draft to get Gavin McKenna. This was probably the hardest team I have, to evaluate in terms of where I put them. It's the San Jose Sharks, and you might not think that is the hardest team because, well, they're a bad team, but I when evaluating this team, it was like, well, there's different expectations, I think, within the fan base and within the team and the organization. This is a team that I do believe was expected to take a bit of a jump in the standings. Not by all means, no playoffs, but a bit of a jump. Maybe not last in the Pacific, maybe seventh. If they do really well, maybe sixth in the Pacific. It's looking like they're going to get eighth in the Pacific. And now I know a lot of Sharks fans are totally fine with that. They totally expected that. They're like, no, this team is still really, really bad, and I just want to get Gavin McKenna, or have the best shot to get Gavin McKenna. That's totally fine. So I didn't want to put them in panicking because, they haven't had the best start of the season, but they do look fun. They are fun to watch. Celebrini is unbelievable. Will Smith is getting better. So I didn't want to put him in panicking. I wanted to put him here because I think more of the expectations, although there are differing expectations for this team, I think a little bit. I think the majority of the expectation is that they're just looking forward to the draft to get the potential number one guy in McKenna. Moving on to the next team, I've got the Boston Bruins actually. The Bruins, by most of what I saw, were not expected to do very well this season. And although they had a little bit of a nice start, like the first week to the season, it's been pretty bad since then. So yeah, I think the Bruins, since a lot of the expectations was that they were not going to be good this year, and they're not, that they're fine with just being like, okay, this is a bit of a retool season. You keep the guys, we don't rebuild, no. But maybe we can get lucky if we're really bad this season and get someone who can change, turn around the trajectory of this team here in Gavin McKenna, right? And then the last team in the Gavin McKenna tier, I have the Calgary Flames. It's the worst team in the NHL, and although I know that some fans were excited about Dustin Wolf and how amazing he is, and that maybe they could improve on last season, I think most people understand that this team needs like at least one more blue chip prospect in order to become eventually, a team that's fighting for the playoffs, and then, in said playoffs becoming eventually a Stanley Cup contender. I think you need at least one more blue chip prospect, and I think most Flames fans and the organization, I think, understands that. So they're perfectly comfortable. I think they're the most comfortable tanking this season and potentially getting Gavin McKenna. But moving on to the next tier up, we've got the panicking hard tier. This is what the video is about, right? These are the teams that have had quite concerning starts to the season for this first month. And we've got, how many teams we've got here? We've got 5 teams. We got 5 teams in this tier. So starting off, I think that this team is probably the most panicked. This team is the most concerned about how the month of October went for their team. It's the Minnesota Wild. Just very, very concerning 5-on-5 play. It's really hard for them to get anything generated, and their power play is also it was really good to start, and now it's a little bit tapering off. So that's even more concerning. It's just, yeah. I mean, you get Kaprizov signed to that huge contract, and you hope to then, okay, that you got the big stuff out of the way. Let's make the playoffs. Let's see what we can do. And it's looking not so good. I'm not saying that any of these teams in this tier, the panicking hard tier, they're not out of it. It's the end of October. It's not the end of the season. So these teams have time to turn around, but it's looking pretty bad for the Wild to start. Another team it's looking pretty bad for so far is another Central Division team. It's the St. Louis Blues. St. Louis Blues are also, I think, panicking hard because they look so listless. They look like they're miserable. They don't look like they're having fun at all on the ice. Joel Hofer is, I know he was someone who could eventually be, like maybe at best like a 1A goalie. He's not looking like that at all to start the season. In fact, he looks like maybe the worst goalie in the league to start the season, at least this first month. So hopefully Joel Hofer can turn it around. Buchnevich, I talked about him in my overrated and underrated video, and I think he's one of the most overrated players in the league because he is just continually just does not impress me in the slightest. From his no defense game, his no effort game. His offense seems to be just that he rides the coattails of other players. So, yeah, just very concerning. And Jim Montgomery, who I think is a fantastic coach, we'll see if he has the ability and the answers to turn this team around and the season around for them. Another team that I think is panicking hard, it is the Vancouver Canucks. Vancouver Canucks, they absolutely can still, they have time to get the third division spot in the Pacific. The Pacific Division is so bad that they absolutely could take it. And they have to, right? They have to prove to Quinn Hughes, their captain, that they're a team that's going to be continually, in the mix for, the playoffs. And they can't go down, even a retool. A retool will be bad. They have to go, definitely not a rebuild, because then, you run the risk of Quinn Hughes saying, all right, this is not for me. I'm leaving and I'm joining my brothers in New Jersey. So, yeah, concerning for the Canucks just because of all the injuries they've had as well. But they still have time, for sure. I'm hoping Lucas Reichel, recently traded, I'm hoping that he can be part of the answer there in Vancouver. Moving on to the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning are another team I think that is not panicking as much as if I made this video maybe a week ago. They're about 500 now. But I think I put them in the panicking tier just because I think that it's starting to dawn on maybe the organization and the fans that this team is not a contender anymore. Even if they do make the playoffs, I don't think they stand the likes to contend against Carolina, New Jersey, Florida, obviously, potentially even Toronto. So this core is old. It's the third oldest team, I think, in the NHL. So all their defensemen are kind of tapering off. Hedman keeps kind of going down and down. He's still a very good defenseman, but I'm just saying that his best years are definitely behind him. So yeah, I would put the Lightning organization in the panicking hard tier. And then the last team in the panicking hard tier, I gotta go with the Ottawa Senators. They are the team with the most goals for in the league to start the season. They are also the team with the most goals against. After a game, the Chicago Blackhawks game that just happened last night, obviously as a Blackhawks fan, very happy about that. But if I was a Senators fan, I'd be really, really upset because you got to win these games. Blackhawks are likely not making the playoffs, and you probably look at that game as maybe a get-right game. Ullmark has been so bad to start the season. Full disclosure, I drafted Linus Ullmark on my fantasy team, and I've dropped him. I'm not holding out for a turnaround here from Ullmark. I'm not waiting for that. My fantasy team will suffer no longer. So the Senators, I think, are very anxious right now, and they should be, because it's such a competitive Atlantic Division, and if you don't get the starts or the wins early on, you could absolutely find yourself out of the playoffs come April. Moving on to the next tier, this is the teams in the middle. I won't go too much in depth on these teams. These are teams that are, there's plenty of time tier. They may be slightly concerned, depending on, how they've done. But I wouldn't be too concerned. They're not overreacting too much. There's still plenty of time. And it's not like they've had an abysmal start to the season like some of the other teams in the panicking tier, right? So moving on to this one, I've got the Blue Jackets, the Columbus Blue Jackets to start here. You want a better start. You want a better start for the Blue Jackets. You want your young guys, especially Fantilli. I don't know why they don't ever give him power play time. I don't know what's up with Dean Evison, their coach there, making that decision. But there's encouraging things as well from this team, like their goaltending situation right now. Jet Greaves, their future number one goalie, maybe their current number one goalie, but Elvis Merzlikins has something to say about that because he's also had a great start of the season. So it's not all bad from Blue Jackets land. It's just you want a better start. I have them making the playoffs this year. There's still plenty of time to do that. But again, the East is quite it's a dogfight, right, in the East. So it's quite competitive. So yeah, they gotta figure out some stuff. Another team that needs to figure out some stuff, it's Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't think they're overreacting too much. They're a team that continually makes it year over year to the playoffs. But it's not been a great start to the year for the Leafs. They've had these starts before, but I think this has been the worst so far. So that's why I didn't want to put them in panicking yet. I don't want to overreact again too much to this Toronto start. But the Leafs, yeah, they've got to figure some stuff out. Like their defense and their offense seems quite listless, kind of like the St. Louis Blues, where like they look unhappy. They're not playing like hockey that is fun to watch. So Leafs fans, I think, are probably pretty upset about how they're playing. But yeah, I wouldn't overreact too much. If Matthews can start figuring out some stuff and they get the lines clicking and the chemistry going, I think this team will be fine and they'll make it to playoffs. The New York Rangers are up next, and maybe I've got a kind of a controversial take. I don't think the Rangers should be panicking hard just yet. This is a new coach, a new system. They've got a lot of new players and new faces, and they're behind the play. Like their analytics, the deep analytics suggest that they are doing actually quite well. They're just getting kind of unlucky in, so to speak, in analytical terms. So I wouldn't be too worried if I was the Rangers. I think just keep it up. Obviously, you want your players to keep trying their absolute hardest, but Shesterkin's playing lights out for you. So as long as that's happening, I think you still have a great chance to make these playoffs. I wouldn't be too scared if I was New York Rangers. Moving on to the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers, again, I'm not overreacting too much. Obviously, I want someone else to win the Stanley Cup this season. I don't want to see the same team win it over and over again. But I also don't think that this is like, if there's any Panthers haters out there, I wouldn't be jumping up and down from this start from the Panthers, because they're not like the worst team in the league. They're 500, and they're missing their top two guys. They're going to get Tkachuk back in a couple months, and if they can just tread water until then, stay around a 500 team, maybe a little bit above 500, but you get what I'm saying here. It's the Panthers. They're a very good team, very well coached team. Up and down the lineup, they're good. It's just the injuries, right? I'm not saying they're going to win the cup this year, but yeah, they likely make the playoffs still. Moving on to the Dallas Stars, after being one of the last undefeated teams to start in the first week of the season, they then lost like 4 in a row. I don't think it's something to overreact too much about. Again, it's only 1 month into the season, but it is still somewhat concerning, right? I had them, when I kind of projected how this season would go and looking at the standings, I had them actually as a wild card team. So right now, this is kind of perfectly, if that keeps up, that's a kind of a perfect prediction here. But yeah, again, I think Dallas fans, they made the Final Four 2 years in a row. They want to be better than this, but it's just the regular season. You just got to make it to the playoffs here if you're the Stars. I wouldn't be too worried about who you're facing first round. Moving on to the Nashville Predators. I debated that putting them maybe lower, kind of more in the panicking tier, but I don't really have a great, kind of finger on the pulse of what Nashville fans are expecting. I think some fans were expecting a huge rebound year. I think some fans were like, well, let's start the rebuild. Let's kind of, if we can, sell off Stamkos. Let's sell off Marchessault. I think it's quite diverse in terms of the expectations for the Nashville Predators this year. So they've been middling. They've been pretty average, maybe a little bit below average, and I expect that trend to continue. I don't think they're going to be a very good team at all this year. I actually have them finishing as the worst team in the Central this year. And that's, from my standpoint, from my viewpoint, I think that's good for the team. I think if they get Gavin McKenna, it's the absolute best thing that can happen for this team. Sell off your old guys if you can. I don't even know if that's possible because of the big contracts they signed. But yeah, I think that it's pretty hard to kind of judge the Predators at this point in the season. We'll keep watching them as they go, and then I'll make more assessment. Moving on to the Buffalo Sabres. The Buffalo Sabres, they started really bad, and I was ready to, when I was thinking about this video and where I'd put them, I'm like, oh yeah, they're going to go in the panicking hard tier. I don't think it's so anymore. Obviously a concerning start, but since then, since being like 0-3, they've had quite a decent record, actually, one of the best records since then in the whole NHL. So they look much more engaged, much more like they care now. I don't know if it was just a weird, start where they just like were sleeping halfway through, through the first three games. I don't know, but I wouldn't be. I know. It's been 14 years since they made the playoffs, but these Sabres, it's an open, wide Atlantic Division right now. Any team could still make the playoffs. I think the Sabres have an actually decent shot. So again, not too worried. The Oilers, the Edmonton Oilers, are another team that is in this tier. They're kind of doing the exact same thing as every year. I wouldn't be too scared. These Oilers, they can start like this, through the first month of the season, they'll be just fine. I think they'll finish second in the Pacific when it's all said and done. And then lastly in this tier, I've got the Los Angeles Kings. I originally had them when I was kind of making this video, that they were not going to be in this tier. They were going to be in the panicking hard tier. No, I don't think that's the case truly anymore. They've definitely turned it around a little bit. Now, I would be concerned. I would definitely be concerned. That's the reason that they're at the back of this tier. They're the closest to panicking out of all these middling teams. But I would still have them in this kind of not overreacting too much, just because they have two new defensemen on the blue line. It takes time to adjust, and they're looking actually quite like a veteran team, a team that knows that when it makes mistakes, not to make more mistakes. And I've been a little impressed over the past week how they played. Moving on to the next tier, this is the second best tier to be in. If you're in this tier, again, you're either defying expectations, whether that's within your own organization, your own fan base, or maybe the narrative around the league. In this tier, you either, again, are defying expectations a lot, or you're just doing well. You're just a team that's chugging along. You're kind of expected to do well, and you're doing well. You're not one of the best teams in the league, but you're still are quite good. So to start us off here, I've got the Seattle Kraken. Seattle Kraken, yeah, I'm surprised. Color me shocked about how they're doing. I had them as one of the potentially bottom 5 teams in the league this season, and they're not that, and I don't think they will end up that. They may not continue this nice start they've had, but I like how Lane Lambert has been able to get this team to play. They're obviously very, very focused on the defensive side of the game, which is Lane Lambert's style. It's actually always been kind of the Seattle Kraken style, and they kind of look for opportunities. When they get these rare opportunities to score, they kind of capitalize on those chances, and they make their opponent pay. They kind of remind me a lot of how the Nashville Predators actually played back when they were kind of at the top of their game. I know kind of a weird comparison to make, but they always were that identity of a team that, they didn't get many scoring chances, but when they did, they would make you pay for them. So I really like the start from the Kraken. Moving on, I've got the Detroit Red Wings. What a start for Detroit. I didn't want to put them in ecstatic or over the moon tier, the top tier, just because they've done this before. They've had great starts this season, and then it tapers off, and they miss the playoffs. So I definitely need to see more before I put the Red Wings up higher for next month's team panic meter. But Red Wings, I think you have to be happy. You have to be happy with how they're doing, just because a lot of teams had them. A lot of people and pundits, they had them finishing anywhere from 6th to 8th in the in like the standings for this season in the division. So yeah, I think I was one of them, right? I think I had them finishing maybe 6th. So very happy for the Red Wings. I hope they make the playoffs. It's been a long time, and that arena definitely needs to see some playoff hockey. Moving on to my Chicago Blackhawks, I couldn't be more happy that they are in this tier. They're not in the best tier. They're not they're not over the moon, I think, just because they're not one of the best teams in the league. They're in a wild card spot right now. I think they're 13th best in the league, last I checked. But I think you can be very happy for the Blackhawks because this team is fun again. This team is awesome to watch. They're full of young players who are finding their stride, and you can see the development with your own eyes. You can finally start to see Kyle Davidson's plan taking effect, and that is so exciting. And someone who's been a big Kyle Davidson believer and truther for a few years here now, it's really rewarding. So we'll see the Blacks can keep this up. Obviously, again, only 10 games into the season for them, but yeah, it's very encouraging. And even if they don't make the playoffs, I think at this point, the fan base and the organization would rather kind of play meaningful games in March and April than get, a top tier draft pick. I think it's at that point now. Moving on to another team that's very pleasantly surprised a lot of people. It's the Pittsburgh Penguins. Oh my God, what a start for them. This is the team, that it's the little engine that could. So encouraging. It would be, I think, the feel-good story of the year if they can make the playoffs. With one last run at the Cup with this core, obviously, I don't think they get it done. I don't think they win the Cup, but it would be such a cool story and narrative if they, everyone's talking about, okay, they're going to a full rebuild. Crosby's getting traded. Everyone's getting traded. And they just say, nope, we're actually pretty good, and we're going to make the playoffs. So I hope they can keep this up. It's actually really cool. Another team that is defying expectations a little bit is the Philadelphia Flyers. I know that some people had them as a sneaky wildcard team. I was not one of them. I thought they were going to be pretty bad this year, bottom 10 team. And they still have time to be that. They still have time to be both. They are kind of just playing good hockey, though. It's very encouraging from Rick Tocchet. I'm not the biggest fan of Rick Tocchet always. I don't love his offensive systems, and I don't really love what's going on with Michkov to start the season. But I still think that as a team, I think they're playing quite well. And they're keeping pace with some of the better teams in this league. Moving on to the Anaheim Ducks. This team was expected by many to make a jump, and they are. They're doing what was expected of them. So that's very encouraging. Joel Quenneville has them playing very fun hockey. Sometimes they let in a lot of goals because their defense is, I don't know if it's a new system or not. It probably is because it's a new coach, but they let in a lot of goals sometimes. That's not because Dostal is bad. He's one of the best goalers in the league, actually. It's just the style of hockey they play. They let in a lot of goals, but they also score a lot of goals. Leo Carlsson, my number one bet of a player that was going to have a huge season, and the player that I thought was the sneakiest addition in fantasy, if you play fantasy. It's really cool to see him, popping off and making me look good. Moving on to the New York Islanders. This is a team, it was hard to kind of know where to put them. I know a lot of fans were totally fine if they were in the bottom tier here and getting Gavin McKenna. I think that eventually happens, but so far they're respectable. They're a very respectable team. They're on paper one of the worst, but they're fighting hard. Waugh has them fighting hard. Their coach there on the island. So yeah, they're also like that top line and Matthew Schaefer. Oh man. I'd be very happy if I was an Islanders fan. That's why I had to put him here. It's like, I'd be very happy. You've got your future number one defenseman who looks right now to potentially be of the Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar ilk. Along with, this team, even if they're not that good on paper, is still fighting quite hard. So that's very respectable. Moving on to the last two teams in this tier before we get into the top tier, it's the Carolina Hurricanes. They were expected to do well. They are doing well. They've had a bad week this past week, but it's fine. They'll be one of the top 10 teams this season, one of the top 2 teams in the Metro Division, I'm sure. And it's kind of they're on pace with how the Hurricanes were expected to do, and they're going to be one of the top teams again come playoff time. And the last team, this is the team that I wanted to put closest to maybe being concerned. It's the Washington Capitals. I still think they're very happy with how they started, especially their goaltending situation with Lindgren and Thompson. But yeah, maybe not the best, most offense. They're not scoring as many goals as they probably like. So I still think they've had a great start of the season, but there's some other teams I think would maybe be a little bit happier. And then lastly, this is the last tier. I know this is a very long video. I apologize. But I just want to kind of go in a little bit on these teams and how they're doing. I think the team that's most ecstatic and had such a great start to the season, they are over the moon. It's the New Jersey Devils. They went on a 7-game win streak. They did not get the 8th. They kind of got killed by the Avalanche last night. But still, they should be very happy. I think Jake Allen has just been their number one goalie. Jacob Markstrom, for whatever reason, has looked quite awful to start the season. I don't know if he's still dealing with injuries or what, but just make Jake Allen your main guy. And yeah, I think the team might win the Eastern Conference. They're that good. So, just make sure also no injuries, right? Jack Hughes is unbelievable to start the season. Bratt looks like Jesper Bratt. So yeah, I think Devils fans and the team should be very, very happy with how they started and how they did in October. Moving on to the Las Vegas Golden Knights. The Golden Knights, yeah, you should be only happy with how your team is doing. You have one of the best offenses in the entire league. You have one of the best power plays in the entire league. You're such a fun team. The goaltending situation's a little worrisome, right? Hill's out. Schmid is your number one for right now until eventually Carter Hart joins the team. But yeah, so that's a little worrisome, and is why I don't have them as a number one, the most happy team in the league. But yeah, you should only be happy if you're a Knights fan with how your team is doing. The Colorado Avalanche are next. They should be quite happy with how their team is doing. Some people, so I saw some analysts put them in like maybe a wild card as a wild card team as a prediction for the season, potentially maybe being a hot take of missing the playoffs. No, I had them as the number one team in the Central Division. So to see how they're doing to start the season has been very rewarding and encouraging. To see that Natchez is plugging along. It's obviously you want him to sign a more of a team friendly contract, but still you want your team to do good, and that's what they're doing. The Avalanche are doing very good. One of the most ecstatic teams is the next team I'm about to say. It's the Utah Mammoth. Big expectations were on them this season to ascend to the next plane. They wanted this team to ascend to a playoff team, squarely in the playoffs. That was the next step they had to take, and it absolutely looks like they're taking it. I have no doubts that they're going to make the playoffs this season. They're looking so great. Their goalie is awesome. Their defensive system looks so tight. They're not allowing lots of shots on net, and they're killing it offensively. Oh my God, is it fun to watch. Cooley is one of the best centers in the league, it looks like. And he just signed that contract extension, so I think that's going to turn out to be one of the best contracts in the league. If you're a Utah Mammoth fan, you should be so happy. These Mammoth are killing it. Moving on to the Winnipeg Jets. There's only one team after them that's in this tier. We're nearing the end of this team panic meter. Winnipeg Jets, I think, they should be very happy, just because I know that some people had them maybe falling off a little bit just because of how great a season they had last season. So maybe some regression to the mean. But no, they look like they're really good still. Who knows? They could absolutely win the Central again. So good on the Jets. And then the last team I want to talk about here is the Montreal Canadiens. Can't not put them in the ecstatic and over the moon tier, because the Montreal Canadiens, although I know some detractors would point to like their level of competition and that they haven't maybe been playing, or when they've won, maybe they haven't won against the craziest of opponents. But I don't look at that stuff. I think that's you play the team in front of you, right? And Montreal's been unbelievable. Cole Caulfield looks like a superstar, and this team is just so much fun, kind of like the Devils or the Mammoth or Chicago. They just look so fun. They look like the whole team is just like all with smiles on their face. So it's really cool to see. But that has been the video. Thank you so much for watching. This is the final result of my October team panic meter for the 2025-26 NHL season. I apologize again if you've made it through the whole video. I'd be very surprised, one, but also two, very happy. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I will catch you guys in the next video.